This is CBC Winnipeg News.
It is time to bring our women home.
Hundreds gathered at Winnipeg's Portage in Main this morning for a round dance, then marched to the legislature. It's in protest of the delay in searching the landfill for the remains of two women believed to be the victims of a serial killer. The protest coincided with International Women's Day. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Janet is away tonight. Protesters are calling for a search of Prairie Green landfill, and they're getting impatient. Hundreds of people brought their demand straight to the legislature today as part of a national day of action. And as the CBC's Ian Fraze reports, this time they had someone new to blame.
Yeah, where are you, Wob? He's right up there. Wob is right up there.
A new premier, but the same problem.
Bring out Wob! Bring out Wob! Bring out Wob! Bring out...
Protesters fed up, a landfill search still hasn't happened. Police believe the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron are beneath the surface of Prairie Green landfill north of Winnipeg, victims of an alleged serial killer. On Friday, demonstrators, including Harris's cousin, Melissa Robinson, had a new target, Premier Wob Canoe.
That he keeps talking a good game. He needs to put his money where his mouth is.
For months, Canoe has promised a search, but for Harris's daughter, Cambria Harris, that's not enough.
And I'm sick of sitting in these rooms repeatedly. Politician to politician, from premier to premier, and where has things gone? Nowhere. The progress still stays the same.
Before then, hundreds gathered at Portage in Main for a round dance. Then marched down Portage Avenue to Manitoba's seat of power, where they decried the lack of progress on a search. Hours later, the premier addressed the criticism.
Our government is going to search the landfill. We're going to put the families first and work with Indigenous leadership in order to do so.
Canoe will update the Harris and Myron families in a few weeks. He wouldn't be pinned down Friday on when a search would start.
And I don't know that that laid out a specific timeline so much as talked about aspirations.
Despite what he said a month ago.
Are your governments confident that a search could begin this year?
Yeah, we are.
Even after a charged protest, Cambria Harris says her trust in Canoe isn't broken.
No, because he's a sacred pipe carrier, and if he holds that so closely, like he does, then he will carry and follow through on everything he says.
It means that I smoked the pipe with Cambria, and I will never back away from the commitment that I made to her in that moment.
Now Harris and other family members expect action. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Winnipeg's police chief says a new bail enforcement unit will take months to get up and running. Last month, the province set aside $3 million to hire 12 officers for the new unit. Chief Danny Smythe says 20% of violent crimes are committed by offenders on bail. Recruitment for the unit will have to wait. The service still needs to hire 24 officers for its downtown foot patrols.
We typically have somewhere between 40 and 50 retirements a year. We'll backfill into those first. Anything that's surplus, then we would start augmenting our foot patrol and then the bail unit.
The police service has cadet classes scheduled this year in May and September. The bail officers will focus on arresting offenders who pose a serious safety risk by breaching conditions of their release. The federal government is investigating a complaint that Jordan's principal funding was not being properly spent at a Manitoba First Nation. Jordan's principal is a policy to ensure all First Nations children in Canada can access products and services for a wide range of health, social, and educational needs. Veerlyn Kubanek reports.
The complaint deals with delivery of services under Jordan's principle at Shamattawa First Nation in northeast Manitoba. It was filed by a former worker who resigned last November from her job delivering Jordan's principal services at Shamattawa. Janet Pitzel says there was misuse of Jordan's Principle federal funds and the wrongful dismissal of employees. Her complaint to the federal government alleges Jordan's Principle money wasn't always being used for the services that Shamattawa children and families needed. She had concerns that children in Shamattawa were not getting the federally funded services because of local factors.
Their basic needs aren't being met. And it's sad. It shouldn't happen in this day and age. And there shouldn't be people taking advantage of a program, especially for children. Never mind, they shouldn't be taking advantage of any program, but this is for their kids in their community.
We asked Shamattawa First Nation Chief Jordan Hill about the complaint. He denies that people in the community were not getting the services they need under Jordan's Principle. And he denies the allegation that federal funds were being improperly spent. He says the complaint contains false allegations. Chief Hill says a recent meeting with federal officials about the complaint went well, and he says everything was explained. The Federal Indigenous Services Department confirmed it's investigating the complaint. A spokesperson told CBC the department takes allegations and complaints regarding the misuse of public funds very seriously. To that end, the department has put a process in place to ensure these allegations and complaints are examined properly and that appropriate action is taken.
That's all we can do at this point, is bring it to everybody's attention, and hopefully someone can step in and say, we need to revamp this, we need to revisit it. We need to meet with the community and see what else needs to be done.
The federal spokesperson said that due to privacy concerns, Indigenous Services Canada won't comment further on the allegations. Vera Lynn Kubanek, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Several people had to be rescued from an apartment on Yonge Street after a fire broke out yesterday afternoon. Crews were called to the three-story building around 1:30 in the afternoon. When crews got there, they immediately went inside to fight the fire. They had to get several people out using aerial truck ladders. 3 people were taken to hospital in unstable condition. The fire was contained to one suite and was put out within half an hour. The cause is still under investigation. It's been 1 week since Winnipeg Mayor Scott Gillingham announced he wants to open Portage and Main to pedestrians and put an end to crossing underground. He says traffic disruptions, along with what it would cost to repair the intersection and concourse, aren't worth it. But some don't agree. Tonight, the CBC's Alana Cole takes a look at why one woman wants the public art below ground to be part of the equation.
I'm at Portage and Main. The mayor wants to open the intersection to pedestrians, but that also means closing the underground concourse. People started using the concourse in 1979. It connects every corner of the intersection and the downtown skywalk system. Now, there's some businesses down here, but there's something else to show you: the art.
This is called The Wall. It's by the late Manitoba artist Bruce Head. It's more than 120 meters and has been called the largest concrete form by an artist in Canada. His widow, Judy Wachuk, worries what will happen to it if the concourse is decommissioned.
He wanted to leave a lasting, significant legacy to the city and the province. Now, he has artwork all over the city, small pieces everywhere, commissions all over the place. But this was the big thing.
She says it took years to create and represents the prairies.
This is one of Bruce's sky pies.
Art historian and former Senator Patricia Bovey has written about Head's work and knew him. She calls the wall a major piece of public art.
And that work, for me, underlines his deep knowledge of the geology of this place, of the geography of this place, and gives us a sense of depth, and it gives us a sense of the rivers and the lakes that Manitoba is so famous for.
Bovey says she's concerned about the number of pieces of public art lost here and elsewhere.
Public art is a very important aspect in the life of a city because it represents place and time and community. And our cities are about community.
Wachuk says before council makes a final decision, she wants to see further consultation with tenants at the intersection and reports showing how much it would cost to decommission the concourse and move the art.
This is a part of our cultural background and history. You don't bury it.
Mayor Scott Gillingham says it's not practical to keep the concourse open after learning it would cost $73 million to protect it from the elements, plus more to repair the concourse itself. He also pointed to traffic disruptions caused by construction and costs of future repairs. The city estimates closing the walkway permanently could cost between $20 to $50 million, but further study is needed. In the meantime, Gillingham is open to a plan for the wall.
If there was a way to save it, I'd be very open to saving it in some manner, of course. So let's have the conversations with our staff and with Winnipeg Art Council.
Bovey says if it can't be saved, there needs to be careful documentation of its history. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Winnipeg Jets added more offensive firepower in the final hours before the National Hockey League's trade deadline. The Jets acquired right-winger Tyler Toffoli from the New Jersey Devils. He has 26 goals and 18 assists this season in 61 games with Jersey. That makes him tied with Kyle Connor as the leading scorer on the Jets. The addition makes the Jets more competitive heading into the Stanley Cup playoffs. But so are other teams that added players before the trade deadline. Toffoli spoke to reporters this afternoon.
I'm excited. It's an exciting time. The team's really good, playing really well, and feels like, you know, all the pieces are kind of there. So it's just a matter of getting there and trying to fit in as fast as possible and getting to work.
In exchange for Toffoli, the Jets gave the Devils their third-round draft pick this year and second-round pick in 2025. The Jets also traded a fourth-round draft pick for Jersey defenseman Colin Miller. The two rinks representing Manitoba at the Brier will face each other tonight in Regina with their Brier hopes on the line. Provincial champion Reid Carruthers lost this afternoon to defending Brier champ Brad Gushue, relegating the West St. Paul foursome to an elimination game tonight. Against the other Manitoba rink, skipped by Fort Rouge's Matt Dunstone. Another Manitoban will also be fighting for his playoff life tonight, as Winnipeg's Mike McEwen skips Team Saskatchewan, an elimination game against the Northwest Territories. The CBC's Devin Haru reports.
A dramatic afternoon inside the Brandt Centre as more than 5,000 fans packed this arena. Of course, the majority of them cheering on Team Saskatchewan, going up against Alberta's Brennan Botcher in the 1-versus-2 qualifying game. What a dramatic scene it was in the final end. A burnt rock. The umpire had to come out onto the ice. They rearranged the rock, and in the end, Mike McEwen unable to make his last throw with just 2 seconds remaining on the Saskatchewan clock. So what it means is Saskatchewan now has to get back on the ice Friday evening against the Northwest Territories in an elimination game. I had a chat with skip Mike McEwen after the loss. He said he likes the way the team played. Now they go in to this must-win game. Take a listen.
Loved all the throws, so there's nothing wrong there. We just literally 2 teams playing well, and the 8th end was an end that was not set up well, and we got in trouble. That's literally that was the game. One bad setup that led to too condensed of an end that we didn't want to get into. It's unfortunate that happened, but you know, that's all it takes when 2 teams are playing well.
In the other 1-versus-2 qualifying game, it was a 5-time champion and defending champion Brad Gushue, Team Canada, defeating Manitoba's Team Reid Carruthers. So that sets up a Saturday night showdown between Gushue and Brennan Botcher. And the other showdown in the elimination game is a Battle of Manitoba, Matt Dunstone versus Reid Carruthers. Of course, it's been 44 long years since Saskatchewan last won a Brier title. If that streak is to end, Saskatchewan is going to have to win 4 straight games here at the Brier. Devin Haru, CBC News, Regina.
Weather specialist Riley Lachak joins us. And Riley, we don't have any big snowstorms in Manitoba to talk about, but we do have something else that is stifling for some people when it comes to this weekend.
Yeah, of course, we've got the time change. Yeah.
Losing an hour.
We're losing an hour of sleep. So if you need a call, I'll call you.
Yeah, Yeah,
at
maybe.
2 in the morning.
2 in the morning to remind me to set it forward.
on Sunday to wake up and put your clocks
Perfect.
forward. But you know what? We get that extra amount of daylight in the evenings. Let's take a look at that right now. Also, a good reminder to change the batteries in your smoke detector and your carbon monoxide detectors, because it's one of those things that needs to be done every so often. So starting on Sunday, sunrise a little before 8 o'clock in the morning, but we get a sunset at about 25 after 7 in the evening. So we get a little bit more daylight here in Manitoba, at least. Anyway, so we did get a lot of daylight, a lot of sunlight across Manitoba today. A little bit of fair weather cloud making its way through the province. Predominantly, though, a sunny sky, and that's what our setup is like for the weekend. For once, I don't actually have a lot to talk about in the weather for Manitoba tonight. It's just going to be one of those weekends where we see mainly sunny skies as we head through the day on Saturday. A hint of maybe a few flurries along the Hudson Bay coast as we get through Sunday, but predominantly sunny sky as we head even into Monday morning. Hint, though, that we could see a little bit of precipitation, mixed precipitation moving through central Manitoba on the afternoon on Monday. So here's the setup. We've been under this ridge of high pressure here, keeping our temperatures cold. That is going to slide further to the south, which will impact southern Ontario, Toronto, the GTA, sinking to more seasonal and colder than seasonal temperatures as we head through the weekend. Behind that, some mild air pushing up from the south. This will warm our temperatures up here in Western Canada and slowly start to make its way a bit south. By the time we get to Wednesday, we start to see that eroding a little bit, and we're back into something that's a little bit more seasonal. So -7 in Winnipeg today. Some parts of southern Manitoba getting up to -2, -3 through the afternoon today. Pressure is falling. Winds have been relatively light, and that's what we're going to see as we head through the overnight period tonight. West winds up to 10 kilometers an hour. For the most part, calm, though, as we head through the overnight period tonight. -18 is our low overnight in the Winnipeg region, up to -17 in the morning with a few clouds again. South winds at 10 as we head into the afternoon. So wind, not much of a factor. By and large, if you like, sun and milder temperatures. Tomorrow's a great day to get outside. -3, the forecast high. Bit of wind pushes through as we get into the day on Sunday. Otherwise, a high of 1 degree. Again, a reminder with that time change. Mix of sun and clouds on the way for Monday with a high of 3. Then we start to see a little bit of clouds start to build into the Red River Valley as we get into the day on Tuesday. That brings with it a chance of some showers as we get through the later part of Tuesday into Wednesday, which could lead to an early morning flurry on Wednesday. And Brittany's temperatures sinking closer to that seasonal -3 by the time we get to the later part of next week.
So not only are the clocks going forward, but I think we're going to be smelling a lot of barbecue over the next few days as well with those temperatures. So. Thanks so much, Riley.
You're welcome.
Well, a Manitoba trapper came across the surprise of a lifetime when he thought his trap had snagged a wolf, but it turned out to be a cougar. This is the first time a cougar has ever been captured alive in the province. Now, wildlife experts are hoping to learn more about its movements and potential breeding.
Well, what the heck do I do with that? Well, there's a first for you, buddy. I'll say. Oh, yeah.
That was the voice of Clint Jansen, who inadvertently caught the animal. Its paw was caught in a trap he set to target wolves near Swan River. He called conservation, who tranquilized the female. The province tells CBC a number of measurements along with hair and blood samples were taken. Jansen described the moment when he spoke to CBC earlier.
Healthy looking, awesome looking animal, muscular and beautiful creature. It got collared and their measurements and DNA samples, and they gave it the reversal, and away it went.
This is the first time a cougar has ever been captured alive in the province, and conservation is hoping to be able to learn more because of it. Dr. Stephen Peterson is the Director of Conservation and Research at the Assiniboine Zoo. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it's great to be here to talk cougars.
Doctor, DNA and other samples from the cougar were collected and are being used for analysis. So what can we learn from those things that we collect?
Yeah, well, our biggest question, and one that we've been working on as new cougars are found, has really been where are they coming from? So to do that, we can use DNA to understand, because we know other populations, if they're coming in from the States or if they're coming from Saskatchewan or further afield.
We need to see if they need a passport. So why is it important to study and learn more about the cougar's movements and habits, especially when it comes to female cougars?
Yeah, I think one of the things that right now we're really interested in is, do we have a breeding population of cougars in Manitoba? So cougars have been expanding their range back into places they've been pushed out of hundreds of years ago, and Manitoba is kind of on the edge of that. So we want to know where they're coming from. We want to know if they're breeding. So one of the ways that we can do that as well is look at, if we have cougars and genetic samples from cougars, are they related to each other? And that might indicate, even without having the animals and evidence from the animals, that there's a breeding population in the province. And then once we know that, then we can roll out whatever sort of management that the province wants to roll out.
So this is the first cougar that's been caught alive here in our province. So are interactions with humans and cougars rare?
Yeah, they are. I think in the last, I don't know, 15 years, maybe less, there's been 8 samples for 8 cougars that have been either trapped by trappers fatally or not fatally, or have shown up. And so it's a really small number. Most people, even if they're there, will never really encounter them. But we think that they might be becoming more common.
Of the cougars from other areas of the country right now. So what does data about a cougar tell us about the surrounding ecosystem, if anything?
Well, yeah. So one of the things that we think might be helping cougars is we have a pretty high deer population, and that might be able to allow them to come back into areas where they historically won't. So kind of changes in that ecosystem that might be affecting kind of other species that we're interested in as well. And then when we do have a set of samples from a cougar, we're usually doing a whole bunch of things. So our vets at the zoo have been involved in necropsies on animals that have not been caught alive. And we can look at stomach contents to see what they're eating. We can take samples to see what their diet is over a longer term. So we can get a whole bunch of information about how those animals are living and finding a living within Manitoba.
Some really important information that's going to be gleaned from some of this data. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
A makeshift memorial continues to grow in an Ottawa community today near the site of the worst mass killing in the city's recent history. 6 people, including 4 children, were killed in their home, and a father and husband has lost his entire family. We'll have more on this story after the break. An Ottawa community is in shock and mourning today after the worst mass killing in the city's recent history. 6 people, including 4 children, killed in their home in the Barrhaven neighbourhood. The sole survivor, a man who's lost his wife and kids in that attack. Matthew Kupfer brings us the latest.
Through the night and today, the makeshift memorial continues to grow near the site of a mass killing that has shaken Ottawa and sent waves around the world. 4 young children, between 7 years and 2 months old, their mother and a family acquaintance died. The children's father survived and is still in hospital. This community leader at the Buddhist temple visited Danushka Wickramasinghe today.
One of the things he said was that, he was thankful for the strength. He felt the strength from the community, from Ottawa, from the Sri Lankan community and from Canada. And he said that's keeping him strong.
He says he was surprised when the conversation turned to Fabio de Souza, who is living with the family and is now accused of 6 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder.
To me, he said, you know what, he's a 19-year-old kid. You can see that he thought about that side, the accused side too, that we should have compassion towards him as well.
The victims and the accused are all Sri Lankan nationals. Their High Commission has been informing next of kin, including the family that was relying on 40-year-old Gamini Amarakun, the other adult victim.
He has 2 kids and a wife and a mother and a sister whom he was supporting. So that also is a very a tragic news for them.
The Deputy High Commissioner says the accused has the right to consular services, but that officials have not been in contact with his family. They are supporting families in making funeral and travel arrangements where necessary. Meanwhile, the High Commissioner and staff will join a vigil in Barrhaven tomorrow, where a community is coming together to grieve the loss of a family. Matthew Kupfer, CBC News, Ottawa.
Ottawa is restoring humanitarian funding to the UN relief agency that provides aid to Palestinians. Canada and other countries had earlier suspended payments amid Israeli allegations that 12 agency members were involved in the October 7th attacks. The CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian reports.
Ottawa is making it official. It will be restoring funding to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, known as UNRWA, money that will help feed the 1.7 million Palestinians displaced by the Gaza conflict, often living in refugee camps in Rafah in the south.
The decision is in recognition of the serious and significant processes that the United Nations has undertaken to address the issues in UNRWA, and the recognition of the critical role that UNRWA plays in providing much-needed support to over 2 million Palestinians in Gaza, as well as the broader region, millions more in the broader region.
The Canadian government, along with many other countries, suspended funding back in January. That's when Israel alleged 12 members of the agency had taken part in the October 7th attack by Hamas. The militant group killed 1,200 Israelis and took another 253 as hostages, kick-starting the current conflict. But since then, the Hamas-run health ministry says Israel has killed more than 30,000 Palestinians in its counterattack, and many humanitarian organizations have said they do not have the capacity to care for survivors the way UNRWA does. And those warnings must be taken seriously, says Canada's ambassador to the United Nations.
We have hundreds of thousands of people who have nowhere to live. We have people who have no access to food, no access to water. We cannot afford to get into political arguments at a point where we're dealing with such a serious humanitarian situation.
This decision's controversial. CBC News reported earlier this week that a funding announcement was on its way. Jewish organizations and even 2 Liberal MPs said that would be a mistake given the allegations against some UNRWA members. Ray says he's read a report by a UN body, an interim report looking into the allegations, and is satisfied by its contents,
though he also said they neither exonerate the UNRWA members in question, nor do they make any findings of wrongdoing. Rafi Bujikani on CBC News, Ottawa.
A new training tool is being tried out to help doctors prepare for pediatric medical emergencies. The idea is to simulate the experience of an emergency using virtual reality. The CBC's Christine Burak has the story.
If a child survives a horrific crash, burn, or fall, they can have less than an hour to live. But even doctors can be rattled.
Instead of seeing the patient this length, you actually have a 6-kilo baby.
Right.
And those are the most difficult for people that are not used to this.
He says kids are not small adults. Emotions can run high, care slows down, and deadly mistakes are made. Nearly 1 million children die from injuries worldwide every year.
We found that lots of deaths could be prevented if the health providers had better training.
And pediatric surgeons at McGill University have come up with a way to offer it.
So this is apparently a 4-year-old that was involved in a car crash.
It's called Petite VR, a virtual ER where all the patients are injured kids.
So this patient is bleeding inside the abdomen.
Right.
No expensive medical mannequins, travel, or courses. This training can be done anywhere, anytime.
The idea of being able to train all these people literally in their homes with a $300 headset on their head, and that's it, is so exciting.
This Ottawa surgeon says the more simulations doctors and nurses can do, the better. Petite VR would give staff in rural parts of Canada and lower-income countries a chance to work with leading specialists.
When you have something like virtual reality that could allow multiple users in different locations to come together, this is something big.
All right, let's give it a try.
We are instantly inside an operating room.
My leg hurts so bad. I think it's broken.
It's amazing how realistic the wound looks.
The doctor stops the bleeding, orders tests and scans. The system tracks what he does, how fast, and scores him. McGill is hoping to offer up the first simulations this summer.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure working with you.
See you soon.
Training in tech that could save young lives around the globe for decades to come. Christine Burak, CBC News, Montreal.
Ontario is vowing to crack down on driving instructors and schools that break the rules when it comes to beginner driver education. It comes after a CBC Marketplace investigation revealed many were willing to sell certificates to students without actual training, putting public safety at risk. Asha Tomlinson reports.
How are the nerves, Ashley?
I've only ever driven with my parents.
Okay. This is Ashley Griffith's first driving lesson.
So remember, always keep your hands on the wheel, right, at all times, right? So
Griffith is taking a beginner driver education course in Ontario, also known as BDE. She has to complete a total of 40 hours of in-car and in-class lessons to get her certificate. That can get her a discount on car insurance. She can also take her driving exam sooner. But in our investigation, we found out of the 20 driving instructors we contacted, 14 were willing to help forge documents and sell BDE certificates for cheap, with no lessons completed. One told us we can get it right away.
Okay, so if I e-transfer you, how much? $150?
$155.
And yeah. I can get it by today?
Yes, you're gonna get it today in the evening, maybe tonight.
Hi. I have an appointment here.
And when we visited one driving school undercover, they explained in detail how this scheme works.
The short version is that you sign as if you've already completed everything and get certificates right now.
And you have done this before, right?
For about 15 years now.
Okay.
Wow. For quite some time.
We revealed our findings to Ontario's Minister of Transportation, Prabmeet Sarkaria. He's now promising to increase sanctions.
When you say sanctions, what do you mean by that?
Well, we're always looking at penalties. We want to make sure that bad actors are punished for any type of behavior that is not in line with the rules and regulations. And so we will have zero tolerance for any of that.
The tolerance may be zero, but the timeline is less clear. The minister did not say what those penalties could look like or when these changes will come. Asha Tomlinson, CBC News, Toronto.
Watch the CBC Marketplace investigation, Driving Schools Exposed. Who's cheating the system? Tonight at 8 p.m. on CBC TV and CBC Gem. Coming up, fishermen are no strangers to rough seas. But as the climate changes, they're being forced to stay ashore more often. How those lost days at sea are impacting the lobster fishing industry. That story after the break. Nova Scotia's lobster fishery is one of the latest industries to be assessed for potential impacts from global warming. And while no significant decrease in the lobster population is expected, the changing climate is still causing trouble. The CBC's Paul Withers reports.
Fishermen work in rough seas all the time, especially the winter fishery in southwestern Nova Scotia. But increasingly bad weather is keeping them ashore there, according to a survey used in the climate change assessment.
responses we got back was about a third of available fishing days were lost due to bad weather. Mind you, they go a bit further out there than maybe in other areas.
300 fishermen were interviewed on wharves across the province in an effort to gauge climate vulnerability in harvesting. Most said they are seeing the effects of climate change. In the 2 southwestern fishing areas, fishermen believe the days lost trend will continue.
As we move forward in the future, we have to start considering more things like vessel safety, emergency response, design around vessels, flexibility in fishing dates, and I think they're doing a good job of that already in terms of days and seasons.
The provincial government agency also looked at expected ocean temperatures to 2055. One of the key takeaways, the effect on lobster in a warming scenario, is encouraging.
Average temperatures, I would like to say, are still within the ranges that different life stages of lobsters can withstand. They're not going to be totally immune.
In the Northumberland Strait, temperatures are expected to creep out of the optimal range for juveniles. The results are an average of each lobster fishing area, not necessarily reflective of all locations within the LFA. The surveys show fishermen are climate change believers, concerned about its future impact. Still, when they were asked how much income loss it would take to get them to stop fishing, they were quite resilient. In southwestern Nova Scotia, most said they would stay in it with half the money. Paul Withers, CBC News, Halifax.
Riley Lachek is back now. And Riley, we dealt with a pretty big system here over the past week, and that system, different system, impacting other parts of Canada now, and thankfully not here, but my goodness, we're seeing some big impact.
Much calmer conditions here for the weekend, Brittany, but rough, a little bit rough if you had not too far east of us. Let's look at the big picture because there's a little bit to talk about here. So Western Canada, by and large, under clear skies because of a ridge of high pressure. A little bit of cloud cover, a little bit of precipitation moving through parts of British Columbia. But if we zoom in here to the southern part of Ontario, a pretty significant rainfall on the way. 20 to 40 millimeters, could see some locally higher amounts, even some higher and heavier pockets of snow up into central parts of Ontario. And if we head further to the east, much of the Avalon Peninsula into Newfoundland under a snowfall warning because quite a system moving through, 30 to 40 centimeters on the ground already in parts of Newfoundland, and another 30 to 40 to come yet by the time we get to about Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening. So rough conditions east. Here in Manitoba, though, we're looking at a mainly sunny weekend. -7 in Winnipeg right now, -6 at the Forks, -10 to the west in Eli, and looking a bit further west, -11 in Brandon right now, -13 in Roblin. Some warmer air moving through northern Manitoba, -3 in Gillam, -4 in Thompson, which did get up to -2 earlier in the afternoon, and Churchill sitting at -10. So you can see that clearing happening across on the satellite map here. A little bit of cloud cover through central and northern Manitoba. We are looking at a mainly clear sky tonight for northwestern Ontario. Temperatures in the -teens for the most part, but a warmer -9 in Fort Frances overnight tonight. Into the southeastern part of Manitoba, temperatures able to get a little bit on the cool side because of those clear skies. -19 in Gimli, -18 in Winnipeg. Hovering around -20 for most of Westman as well, with a mainly clear sky, and temperatures at about -20 for much of northern Manitoba. -21 in Shamattawa, which gets up to -4 tomorrow afternoon, -1s along the northwestern edge of Manitoba, and we're looking at temperatures right around that freezing mark as we get through the day tomorrow for the south as well. -2 in Melita, sunny -1 in the Morden-Winkler region, and much the same for southeastern Manitoba as well. -7 in Gimli, a bit cooler by the water, but temperatures getting above 0 in extreme southern Manitoba, and in northwestern Ontario, Brittany, we're looking at temperatures hovering around freezing and mainly sunny skies as well. Your 7 days coming up.
Not too bad considering what we've dealt with. Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
It is International Women's Day, a day to not only celebrate women and the progress that's been made towards bridging the gender equality gap, but to continue to push in the areas where there's still so much work to be done. More on that coming up after the break. Today is International Women's Day. It's a global day to recognize and celebrate women's and girls' social, economic, cultural, and political achievements. It's also a time to raise awareness of the progress made towards achieving gender equality and the work that remains to be done. I'm joined now by Aisha Khan. She is the CEO of the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Aisha, I want to start with the why. Why do we need a day dedicated to this, and why is it an important day to commemorate?
We need days like this because they give us a chance to pause. Pause to do two things. One is to look back and to celebrate, look how far we've come, look at the rights that have been fought for and that we enjoy today, but also pause to commit to doing the work that we need to do to actually get to a place of equity and equality.
Well, women's rights have come a long way over the years, but we know they still look very different depending on where in the world you are. Where do you see some of the biggest concerns?
Yeah, all week we've been talking about how we celebrate here in Canada, and we have, we're in a place of gratitude for what we have and for the ancestors and women who fought for the rights and freedoms that we have. But we don't have to look that far to other areas around the world to see women who are ravaged by conflict and war, where rape is still used as a weapon of war, rights to education that women are fighting for, basic necessities like healthcare and reproductive rights. And I put those on a global context, but certainly all of the things that I've just mentioned, we also see happening right here in Canada and close to home. So when people say that, we have so much to be fortunate, to feel fortunate about, we do, and yet there's still so much more that we have to do to ensure that women live a life that is free and equal in both dignity and rights.
Aisha, where are we really making some big progress?
I think we're making progress certainly in terms of awareness. More people are talking about women's rights, talking about International Women's Day, I think, than ever before. I've been with young people all week in various schools, seeing young women celebrate and commit to the future. I see the wage gap closing or getting smaller in Canada, yet there's still work to do. We're seeing an slow incremental rise in women in representation of women in the STEM sciences. We're also seeing women of more diverse backgrounds be represented in many places, in holding public office and in executive positions. I say that with the caveat that there's still much more work to be done, though.
Yeah, we know there's work to be done. You talked about that pay gap, the gender gap, the need for equality. This year's theme is Invest in Women, Accelerate Progress. Where do you think those investments really need to be made?
I think that those investments happen at all levels, both economically, socially, but I think most importantly, the investment is in a more holistic view of women's rights. And by that, I mean women's rights are human rights. And for so long, we've been doing this work, and it's women celebrating women and standing on the shoulders of other women, which I think is wonderful and connects us. And we should be grateful for those that fought that fight. I think it's time to open up the circle, though, and have many more people with diverse experiences, both as women, but also have men part of this conversation. That, I think, is when we'll make the most progress, is when we widen the circle.
It is International Women's Day, but we do need the men in our lives to also step up, as Aisha just said. Aisha, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Happy Women's Day.
Happy Women's Day. Still ahead, Riley Lachuk is back with your last check on your weekend forecast. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News.
All right, here's a look at your day planner for your Saturday. We're expecting a sunny sky, albeit a bit of a cold start to the morning at -17 in Winnipeg. South winds light through the day, warming up to -5 by noon once the sun kind of pops out there, and -3 in the afternoon. Again, winds out of the southwest staying quite light. We'll see winds pick up, though, out of the south 20 to 40 on Saturday or on Sunday. That will allow temperatures to really rebound through the day to +1, +3 on the way for Monday with a mainly sunny sky. Chance of some showers as we see some cloud building in on Tuesday with a high of 4. That turns into a chance of flurries on Wednesday with 0, and we're looking at maybe another slim chance of flurries to end next week with a high of 2 degrees in the afternoon. Well, is there anything cuter than a puppy or a baby? We showed you that this week, or some kittens.
Nope, can't think of it, but maybe a tiny porcupine. Take a look at these images and decide for yourself. Here's your daily lift. A British zoo recently released video showing a 3-week-old baby porcupine wandering around the family's indoor den. Dakari, who was born on February 13th, has 3 siblings. Zookeepers describe Dakari as confident and active.
Now, this little critter spends a lot of time puttering around the family home. Cape porcupines are nocturnal. What they may lack in cuteness, though, they make up for in size. They are the largest of all of the porcupine species.
I think they're pretty cute.
And it's pretty cute.
I don't know how close I'd want to get, though, with those.
Yeah.
Your final reminder, that clock goes forward Sunday morning at 2 a.m. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks for hanging out with me this week.
Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.